Well, here at the Coliseum in Lexington, we are ready to go. Kentucky breaking huddle and coming out. Temple tonight in red with white numerals, and Temple in white across the top of the small number in the front of the jersey. The Temple starters, correct as we gave them to you. Kennedy and Rogers will be the guards. Norman and Brodsky the forwards, and Van Patten at center. Against Kentucky with Krigler and Cox at the forwards. Smith and Hatton at guards, Beck at center, and here's the tap to Krigler just in Kentucky's front court. Flips it over to Vernon Hatton as the Cats set it up. They had established themselves at the southern basket tonight, and Temple made them move. Here's Krigler from 20 feet to the left, in and out. Rebounding Krigler, taking it out into the left corner, passing deep to Adrian Smith. Breaks by Guy Rogers from 20 feet, good. Adrian Smith breaks into the scoring column for a 2-0 Kentucky lead as Guy Rogers calls his play, moving into front court for the Owls. Works down the right side to Brodsky. Fires through to Kennedy, breaking to the basket at the baseline against Smith, out to Patton, falling away from Beck. He misses to the left, and Cox knocks it out of bounds. Over the baseline to the left of the basket, the Owls have it. Rogers will put it in play. Slips it to Kennedy in the left corner, back to Rogers, shot short. Glances off the rim, tapped to the outside beautifully by Norman, to Rogers, breaks left, over Hatton, hits. Guy Rogers with his first field goal ties the game at 2-2 with Hatton back in front court for the Cats. Fakes to the left side, pulls up. Cox goes to the pivot as Krigler passes back to Hatton, into Beck, off the left to Krigler, and from 20 feet he shoots in and out. Cox gets a beautiful rebound for the Cats. Guy Rogers goes for him, but he whips it out to Smith, over to Hatton, weaving, moving to the left, pulling up, passing over to Smith. Breaks down to the right side, has his shot blocked beautifully on the side by Brodsky and taken by Guy Rogers. So Temple has the ball for the first time of the game tied. Rogers off the free throw line, hits again. So Guy Rogers, 2 field goals off 2 trips, puts Temple in front 4-2. Adrian Smith flipping to Vernon Hatton, moving up the back court. Hatton in front court to Krigler, out deep, back to Hatton. Down the left side to Krigler from 20 feet, the shot's good. John Krigler with his first field goal ties the game 4-4 as Kentucky is going to rely on the outside shooting against Temple's zone defense. In front courts, Guy Rogers to Kennedy on a crisscross to the left to Norman and back to Bill Kennedy. Breaks in on Adrian Smith, who drives him into the left corner. Back out to Rogers, left open, the shot. No good this time. Cox up to get the rebound away from Jay Norman of Temple. Wheels out of there with it himself. Whips in front court to Smith on the left side and back to Cox. Moves into the corner, takes the jump shot. No good. Off the left side, it's taken in by John Krigler. Out to Hatton, who takes it deep to set it up again. Down the right side to Krigler. Beck on a high pivot. Cox on a deep one. Out to Hatton, now back over to Krigler. Breaks in under the basket on Brodsky. Comes out the other side. Passes to Adrian Smith. Back to Krieg on the left side. Back out to Smith and over to Hatton. He moves to the right, gets a screen from Beck, takes a jump shot. It's no good, missed everything. Slammed off of the chest of Krigler and out of bounds to Temple as Jay Norman pulled off the slick deal under the Kentucky basket. It's a 4-4 ball game after 2.5 minutes. Guy Rogers, who called play 1 the first trip and play 4 the next, now calls number 3. Has the ball knocked down by Krigler, picked up by Brodsky, shoots short and out of bounds under the Temple basket to Kentucky. Vernon Hatton to Smith, takes a return pass, moving up the backcourt with a 4-4 score still etched in red on the scoreboard. Down the right side to Adrian Smith, breaks by. Brodsky pulls up at the baseline, gives to Beck at the free throw line to the right. A 1-bounce dribble, Beck turns, flips it over to Smith out front to Hatton, down the left to Krigler, into Beck on the left side of the pivot now, falls away from Patton and shoots no good. Brodsky rebounds for Temple, up to Rogers on a 2-2 break against Krigler and Hatton. Rogers shoots good, a beauty. Guy Rogers with his third field goal puts Temple in front 6-4 for their second 2-point lead. Vernon Hatton in front court for Kentucky, over to Krigler. Back over to Hatton, down the right to Adrian Smith. Right back to Hatton. Now Smith moves in. Hatton passes left to Krigler. Smith comes out into the left corner, but Krigler passes back out front to Hatton, who moves to the right side. Takes a screen from Beck, drives by Tink Van Patten. Double teamed at the baseline, and a foul is called, the first one of the ball game against Temple's 6'8" center, Van Patten. Vernon Hatton goes to the free throw line for 1 shot. We've played 3.5 minutes here at the Coliseum with Temple leading 6-4. Each team has had a 2-point lead. Temple's had 2 of them. Hatton's shot is short. Van Patten rebounds for Temple. Whips it over to Guy Rogers. And so for the first time, the Owls have the ball and a 2-point lead. Rogers in front court calls Norman out, who comes out, breaks for the basket. Rogers feeds him coming back out. Returns it to Rogers. Breaks in to the left side. Cox picks him up as he shoots a pass into Van Patten. Knocked up into the air. It goes out near midcourt. Scooped up by Brodsky just before hitting midcourt stripe. Over to Rogers. Back to Kennedy. Down the right side to Brodsky. Fakes, falls away from Krigler. Shot's good. That's Mel Brodsky with his first field goal, and Temple now leads 8-4. Vernon Hatton in front court for the Cats. Down the right side to Krigler, outside to Hatton. Kentucky relying on the outside shooting so far. Hatton moves down the right side on Rogers. Van Patten picks him up, and he shoots it up, no good. Cox taps, no good. And as a rebound comes off of there to Vernon Hatton, a jump ball is called as it's knocked out of bounds. 15 minutes and 45 seconds here in the first half. Hatton steps out at 6'3", jumping against Rogers, who is 6 feet. Kentucky's got 3 inches. Tapped to Beck, knocked outside to Adrian Smith. Breaks to the right on Kennedy. Loses the ball, goes into the right corner to recover, and passes deep to Hatton. Hatton moves to the left, looking at Krigler. Feeds to him. Back over to Hatton, down the right to Smith. Kentucky plays a strong court to the left. Back outside to Hatton, off the strong side to Krigler, with Coxon on the pivot against Jay Norman out in front of him right now. So the pass is back out to Hatton and over to Smith. Hatton moves in. Smith comes to the left, gives to Krigler. He takes a 25-foot one-hander, and it's good. John Krigler with his second field goal pulls Kentucky within 2 points at 8-6. Guy Rogers of Temple yells 8 as he crosses the midcourt stripe. Gives over to Kennedy, moving to the left, pivoting. Coming back with a bounce pass down the right side to Rogers from 10 feet. He's open and hits. That's 4 field goals for Guy Rogers, and Temple takes its second lead of 4 points. Timeout, Kentucky. 14 minutes and 58 seconds in the first half as Kentucky calls the first timeout of the ball game, which in itself is an unusual situation, as the Cats will not call a timeout until they're in trouble. We started off with Odie Smith hitting the first shot after 20 seconds, a 20-footer. Rogers matched it up to tie the game at 2-2, and then from the free throw line, a 15-foot shot put Temple in front. Krigler from 20 feet tied it up after a minute and 35 seconds. Rogers went all the way to put Temple in front 6-4. And after Hatton missed a free throw on a foul by Patton, Brodsky came in with a 10-foot jump shot to boost the Owls into an 8-4 lead. Krigler hit and Rogers hit to make it 10-6 as we get ready now to go back to play. We'll be back with you again Monday night over these same stations on the Standard Oil Sports Network, broadcasting from College Park, Maryland. 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time for the Kentucky-Maryland game. Kentucky's ball at the dividing stripe. Adrian Smith moves in to put it in play. Smith passes just in backcourt to Vernon Hatton. Temple plays it loosely out deep on the zone defense. Over to Krigler in the left corner to Cox, out to Beck at the pivot. He cuts into the left at the baseline, gives to Krigler, who goes down the baseline, tries to shoot. Van Patten fouled him. That's the second foul of the ball game, and both of them on 6'8" Tink Van Patten of Temple. Krigler this time is on the Kentucky free throw line. He's got 2 coming. 14 minutes and 47 seconds in the first half. Krigler's first free throw, good. Krigler is the leading Kentucky scorer with 5 points as Temple's lead is trimmed to 3. Krigler's second shot is around the rim and out. Van Patten has it knocked away by Beck, but picked up by Norman in the air for a 10-7 Temple lead as Rogers moves it in front court to Kennedy, takes a return pass. Down the right side to Brodsky, who breaks out, gives to Kennedy. Krigler picking up on him as he goes to the baseline. Krigler need him, and it's the first foul against Kentucky. 14 minutes and 34 seconds now in the first half as Bill Kennedy, the sophomore, goes to the Temple line for 1 shot. Rogers goes all the way back to the top rim of the Kentucky circle in a safety, with Brodsky playing near midcourt. Kennedy shoots, good. Temple's back on top by 4, 11-7 for the third time in the game. Hatton in front court to Adrian Smith. Lets Beck go through. Takes a dribble, tightening it up with a bounce pass. Off the left side to Krigler. Moves out to the top rim of the circle. Passes on the right corner to Hatton. A one-bounce dribble, a pivot, and a pass back to Krigler from 25 feet. Krigler misses. Off the rim, on the floor, through his legs. He picks it up, fights against 2 Temple Owls, and secures possession. Over to Vernon Hatton as he brings it back outside. Off to Krigler. In the pivot to Beck. Beck moves to his right in the 3-second zone, gives to Cox from 15 feet. He hits. Johnny Cox with his first field goal cuts the Temple lead to 2 points to 11-9 after 6 minutes of play. Guy Rogers in front court for the Owls. Whips to Kennedy, gets a return pass down the left side to Norman and back to Rogers. Breaks out, and from 15 feet he misses. Comes off to John Krigler of Kentucky. Moves up the back court with it. Brodsky makes a run at him, and he passes over to Hatton, who crosses the stripe. Hatton down the left side to Adrian Smith. Sets a one-bounce dribble and a jump shot. No good. Tapped by Beck twice. No good. On the floor, Brodsky to Rogers, and it's a 3-on-2, 4-on-2 break. Here is Brodsky laying it in. Mel Brodsky with his second field goal boosts Temple back in front by 4 points, 13-9. Fast break paying off for the Owls. Here's Hatton in front court, over to Adrian Smith, in the pivot to Beck. He takes a swooping hook, good. Ed Beck chalks up his first field goal, and 4 of the Cats have scored now. Temple leading 13-11. Guy Rogers back in front court. Norman breaks, gets the pass, and lays it in. Jay Norman with his first field goal puts Temple right back on top by 4 points at 15-11 after 7 minutes of play. Vernon Hatton in front court for the Cats, gives to Krigler to the left. Back out to Hatton, over to Smith, and back to Hatton. Down the left side to Krigler. Whipped into the pivot to Beck, and another hook's way to the right, no good, and taken off by Norman. Smith got it away from him. And back over to Hatton from the top of the circle. He shoots, no good, to the right side, and Temple's got it as Jay Norman pulls it off and holds on this time. Over to Guy Rogers as Kentucky is strictly going for that outside shot, and they're not getting it so far effectively. Over to Kennedy, to Norman, back to Kennedy, juggles the ball and walks with it, and it's out of bounds to Kentucky. Temple 15, Kentucky 11, as Vernon Hatton moves it up the back court with Krigler moving alongside. Down the right to Adrian Smith, back to Hatton, off the left to Krigler. Cox in under the basket with Beck out on the free throw line. Over it goes to Smith, back out to Hatton. Hatton watches the situation and passes over to Adrian Smith. Down in the right corner to Cox, shoots one to the pivot to Krigler, breaks under the basket, loses his dribble, comes out, gives to Hatton, and it's knocked out of bounds by Rogers. Kentucky takes it after 8 minutes of play. Free throw line deep on the left side of the offensive court. Hatton fakes a deep pass, gives to Beck in the left corner, steps in bounds, gets a screen on the return pass, moves it back out front with a pass to Smith, back to Hatton. Down the left side to Cox in the corner. Here's the jumper. Good. Johnny Cox with his second field goal puts the Temple lead to 2 points, 15-13, as Guy Rogers comes up the middle of the backcourt, calling his 5th play, goes into a hard run against Adrian Smith, loses the ball. Norman picks it up and loses the ball. Patton picks it up now. Fires it out to Norman, over to Rogers. Rogers breaks to the right. Smith stays with him, and he walks. It's out of bounds to Kentucky now. A chance to tie up this 15-13 ball game. Vernon Hatton back in front court before the standing room only crowd. Moves into the right corner. Passes out deep to Krigler. Back over to Hatton to the right and deep. Off the left side deep to Smith in the corner to Cox. Fakes Norman down the baseline. Hatton made a beautiful block out of bounds. Johnny Cox made a tremendous fake and faking Norman down to his knees. And Tink Van Patten made a slamming block of his shot out of bounds. Ed Beck out of bounds to put her in play. Gives deep to Vernon Hatton on the left side. Hatton moves to the right. Gives to Adrian Smith. He sets. Whips one to Beck in the pivot. Beck is triple team, moves to his left, comes back to his right and misses. Rebounding is Tink Van Patten of Temple. Whips one up to Bill Kennedy, moving in front court down the right side against Hatton, pulls up from 15 feet and hits. Bill Kennedy gets his first field goal, and Temple's back in front by 4 points. Kentucky had 2 runs at him and couldn't make it. Back in front court is Smith of Kentucky to the baseline, gives it to Beck, who has it taken away by Guy Rogers. Then it's knocked away and picked up by Adrian Smith. Out to Hatton, off the left to Krigler, who takes a 20-footer. No good. Beck taps, no good. It's out of bounds to Temple. Temple 17, Kentucky 13. Now the Owls have got possession as Guy Rogers wheels into front court, calling the play. Passes to Kennedy, down the right to Brodsky, and the pivot to Van Patten. Spins out, flips off to Norman. He's wide open to the left and misses. High off the rim is Beck, knocked away, but taken by Smith. Moves up into front court, a collision with Brodsky, and the foul on Brodsky of Temple is his first one. That's the 3rd foul against the Owls. 10 minutes, 8 seconds here in the first half as Kentucky's Adrian Smith makes his first appearance at the free throw line. Kentucky has been very effective on the free throw line, but here tonight they've hit only 1 out of 3. Trailing by 4, Smith shoots no good. Temple's got the rebound as Brodsky flips it over to Guy Rogers, moving up into front court, and Kentucky has missed 3 out of 4 on the free throw line, which is almost the difference in the ball game. Here's Rogers from 10 feet, missing. Beautiful tap by Jay Norman, who picks up his second field goal, and now for the first time in the game, Kentucky's down by 6 points. Vernon Hatton coming into front court, passes left side to Krigler, down in the corner to Cox. Norman on him, outside to Krigler, still on the left side, taking it deep, passing to Adrian Smith, down the right to Vernon Hatton. Hatton takes a 1-bounce dribble, sights, then passes out to Smith, off the left side to Krigler. Beck comes out, gets the pass, whips it back to Smith, top of the circle, makes a fake from 15 feet. Smith misses, taken off by Rogers. They got it 3-on-1 against Adrian Smith. Here's Temple's Bill Kennedy laying it in. Kennedy picks up his second field goal of the game, and Temple leads 21-13. This Temple team is a real tough one. Vernon Hatton back in front court, passes over to Adrian Smith in the pivot to Beck. Off the left to Johnny Cox. He takes a hook. It's in and out, back in. 3 field goals for Johnny Cox as he goes to the pivot. Temple 21, Kentucky 15. Guy Rogers back in front court for the Owls, over to Kennedy, back to Rogers, down the left to Norman, back to Rogers, cuts into the free throw line, picked up by Beck, gives to Kennedy, a head fake down the baseline, shoots it up there, no good. Johnny Cox got the rebound for Kentucky, 2-on-1 with Krigler, and it's knocked out of bounds by Guy Rogers of Temple. No, they're going to give it to Temple. Guy Rogers moving back in front court for the Owls. Moves off to the left side. Calls Kennedy into him. Keeps it. Passes right to Brodsky. Back to Rogers. Breaks to the baseline. The shot's way short into the side of the boards, and Ed Beck rebounds. Norman attacks him, but he passes over to Hatton. Hatton in front court for the Wildcats. Down the left to Smith. In the left corner to Cox. Jump shot. Good. Johnny Cox with his 4th field goal of the night. Makes it 21-17. And Kentucky, down by 8 points, has cut the margin in half. Back in front court now, Guy Rogers of Temple waves Norman off the left side. He wants to work over there with a bounce pass to Brodsky. A quick shot's good. Beautiful play by Temple, setting Brodsky up for his 3rd field goal. And with 8 minutes in the first half, Temple 23, Kentucky 17. Smith in the left corner to Cox. Back to Smith to Hatton down the right side to Krigler. Krigler weaves at the basket, gives out to Hatton to Smith, breaks down the left side. From 10 feet to the left, he shoots. Good. Counts. Foul on the play against Temple's Mel Brodsky. Wait a minute. It's going against Kennedy, number 3 instead of 23. Kennedy's first, Temple's 4th. Adrian Smith's field goal is his 2nd. On the free throw line for 1 shot, it's good. That's the first 3-point trip of the ball game. Reduces the Temple 8-point lead to 3, 23-20. Guy Rogers back in front court now for the Owls. Gives over to Kennedy, moving to the left. Hands to Norman, back to Kennedy. Cuts into the 3-second zone against Beck. Gives to Brodsky, pumps back beautifully to Patton, who missed the shot, and Cox rebounds for Kentucky. Johnny Cox moving up into front court now. Pulls up out deep with it. Passes over to Vernon Hatton down the left side to Adrian Smith. Goes in against Norman and dribbles it off his foot, out of bounds. Bill Kennedy puts it in play for Temple to Guy Rogers. Temple 23, Kentucky 20. Rogers in front court, collides with Adrian Smith, charging by Rogers of Temple. Personal foul number 1 on Guy Rogers. That's 5 on Temple with 7 minutes, 12 seconds here in the first half. And Adrian Smith, 1 for 2, is on the free throw line, shooting 1. Smith looks, hits. Now Kentucky is back within 2 points. Temple 23, Kentucky 21. Guy Rogers, clenched fist, coming in front court to call the play. Fakes, goes down the middle. Adrian Smith knocked it down, and Rogers fouled him. That's the 2nd foul on Guy Rogers. Guy Rogers having trouble now. Mel Brodsky moves out to him to talk with him, try to settle him down. However, Rogers is a senior. He's got plenty of experience behind him. He came into court a moment ago, charged into Adrian Smith. This time lost the ball to Smith and fouled him trying to get it back. Smith's free throw, no good. Beck taps it up twice, no good. And Ben Patton rebounds for Temple, nursing that 23-21 lead. Now there are 6 fouls against Temple. The bonus rule is in effect against Temple. Here's Kennedy charging into Hatton as he breaks for the basket. The foul is on Hatton for blocking. And it's the first foul on Hatton, the 2nd against Kentucky, as Bill Kennedy goes to the Temple free throw line for 1 shot with 6 minutes, 50 seconds in the first half. Kennedy has had the only Temple free throw. He hasn't missed. He's the shortest man on either team at 5'11". Sophomore, the only one on either team. Here's the shot, good. Temple leads 24-21. Vernon Hatton back in front court for the Wildcats now. Neither team has made a substitution. Over to Krigler to Adrian Smith, who brings it out front. Back to Krigler, deep into the left. Over to Smith, down the right side to Cox, and from 20 feet, jump shot, no good. Tapped up by Beck, no good. Rebounding Krigler is fouled as he jumps to shoot. Bill Kennedy, we believe it is. It is Kennedy's 2nd personal and the 7th on Temple, with John Krigler going to the line, where he has hit 1 for 2. He gets 2 shots. First one good. We have not seen a team this year other than Kentucky that wears numbers according to the NCAA rules. Here's the free throw, good by Krigler again, and Kentucky 8 points down is within 1. 24-23 as Rogers gives to Norman and back to Rogers in front court from 15 feet. Rogers shoots short, drops in. Guy Rogers picks up his 5th field goal to lead both teams in that department. It's Temple 26, Kentucky 23, as we have the first substitution, Opie Franklin of Temple, waiting to get into the ball game. Here's Van Patten slapping it away from Beck and out of bounds. Kentucky takes it off the left corner of the offensive court at the baseline. We got 6 minutes in the first half. Pass into Johnny Cox on the left side. Out front to Hatton. Bounce pass over to Odie Smith. Hit him in the face. He picked it up, moved down the right side. Gets Tink Van Patten, the big 6'8 center on him. Gives to Cox out of the right corner. Jump shot, no good. Goes to Temple on the rebound. It's little Bill Kennedy comes up with it. 2-on-2 break against Hatton and Smith. Gives over to Brodsky wide open. He lays it up. No good. Norman taps it up. No good. Slapped over. Hatton's got it now. Comes rolling out for a 3-2 fast break. Into front court down the right side. Hatton pulls up and Kennedy fouled him. That's the third foul on Bill Kennedy. And into the lineup, the first substitute of the game is Opie Franklin, 19-year-old junior Negro forward from Philadelphia, who's 6'4", weighs 170, and Van Patten comes out. Vernon Hatton on the Kentucky free throw line. Hatton is the only Cat that has not scored a point. 5 minutes and 34 seconds here in the first half. Temple with a three-point edge. Hatton shooting one bonus good. In spite of this being the 8th foul against Temple, this is the first bonus shot of the ball game. And it's good. So Kentucky again has pulled within 1 point, 26-25. Kentucky has not had a field goal in 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Bill Kennedy in front court to Norman. Gives over to Kennedy, 20-footer, rolls off the rim, no good. Slapped into the air. Krigler's got it for Kentucky. Whips up to Adrian Smith in front court to Cox. Flips off to Hatton on the right side. A 20-footer, no good. Rebounding, Adrian Smith in the deep left corner. Comes out of there with it and has it knocked down by Rogers, but Smith goes back in and picks it up. Passes out to Hatton at the top rim of the circle. Whips into the pivot to Johnny Cox. Moves to the left and knocked up into the air. He has to go outside to get it. Gives to Adrian Smith with 5 minutes in the first half, and Temple leading by 1 point. Hatton breaks for the basket. Double team. Gives to Krigler, who lays it in. John Krigler's third field goal of the game shoots Kentucky into a 27-26 lead after Temple had an 8-point advantage. Krigler knocks it out of bounds away from Brodsky now. Temple gets it for the right side of their front court. Rogers passing deep to Kennedy. Hands it back to Rogers. Calling Kennedy back. Passes to him out deep. Moving to the left. Gives to Norman. Comes out to the top rim of the circle. Down the right to Rogers. He's open. The shot's good. Guy Rogers sacks up his 6th field goal, and Temple is back in front, 28-27. Waiting to get into the Temple lineup now is Dan Fleming. Here's Krigler giving over to Hatton. Back to Krigler. Back over to Hatton. This passing taking place deep. Over to Adrian Smith, top of the circle. Back to Krigler in the pivot to Beck. He's fouled from the rear by Opie Franklin, committing his first foul of the game. And Ed Beck makes his first appearance of the night at the free throw line. Kentucky so far in this game's missed 5 free throws. Bill Kennedy comes out of the lineup. Checking in for the Owls is Dan Fleming, 23-year-old senior. He's 6'6", weighs 210. So here's Beck up, shooting one. 4 minutes, 9 seconds in the first half. Two-hander from between the knees by Beck is good. He gets the bonus shot. The game is deadlocked at 28 all. We played 15 minutes and 51 seconds. Beck's second shot, the bonus try, no good. Cox slaps it deep to Smith. Pulls up at the top of the circle, gives to Johnny Cox. Fakes Norman, clear out of his shoes, drives, misses. Krigler taps it in beautifully. John Krigler with his 4th field goal puts Kentucky on top 30-28. Guy Rogers in front court for Temple now. Turns his back to Adrian Smith. Comes to the right side. Breaks down into the right corner. Pulls up. Smith covers up. He gives in to Dan Fleming a one-bounce pass. Outside to Brodsky. Guy Rogers comes back out. Down the right side, it goes to Fleming. Into the pivot. Here's a hook blocked beautifully by Ed Beck off the hands of Franklin. Over to Adrian Smith to Hatton in front court. Down the left side to Krigler in the corner to Adrian Smith. Fakes, breaks out, gives to Hatton. Off the free throw line, he missed it. Comes off, Beck tapped it up, Beck tapped it up, Beck tapped it up, no good, and a foul is called. It's against Beck of Kentucky, his first foul, and the third against the Wildcats. 3 minutes and 22 seconds in this first half of play. Kentucky 30, Temple 28. Tremendous ball game here tonight for a standing room only crowd as Dan Fleming goes to the Temple free throw line. This is his first appearance. The Owls haven't missed a free throw. Fleming, a right-hander. Shoots, no good. Slapped way to the outside by Jay Norman. It's ticked in by Brodsky, and from 15 feet he shoots, no good to the left. Cox rebounds for Kentucky. Rolls out of there with it. Kicks to Hatton for a 3-1 break. Hatton fakes, Missed it. Tapped by Krigler. No good. Taken off by Guy Rogers, and they've got a 2-on-1 against Ed Beck. Shoots it over to Norman, who loses it out of bounds as Adrian Smith hooked it away from him. 3 minutes to go. We're in the first half here at the Coliseum in Lexington. Guy Rogers bounce pass into Brodsky. Open 10 feet to the right, and he got it. So Guy Brodsky, with his 4th field goal of the game, ties it up 30-30. Vernon Hatton comes back in front court. The Cats messed up on a 3-1 fast break, the first one they've had in the game, that could have shot them into the first 4-point lead. Adrian Smith on the right side watches Cox come off the pivot to the right corner and feeds him as Earl Atkins waits to come in for Kentucky. Adrian Smith shoots and hits 25 feet to the right. Odie Smith gets his 3rd field goal of the game. Kentucky 32, Temple 30. Earl Atkins waits to become the first Kentucky substitute. Back in front court, Guy Rogers against Adrian Smith. Shoots good from the top rim of the circle. 7 field goals for Guy Rogers, and it's tied up 32 all. Vernon Hatton in front court for Kentucky. Over to John Krigler, back to Hatton. Hatton still has not picked up a field goal in this game. Off the right to Adrian Smith. Moves down the side. 20-foot jump shot. Off the rim, no good to Norman of Temple. 2 minutes to go as Temple gets the ball in this tied game. Mel Brodsky moves it up into front court now for the Owls. He hands it off to Guy Rogers, who takes it out deep, gives over to Brodsky and back to Rogers, down the side to Norman and back to Rogers. Moves out, dribbles behind his back, pulls up for a 10-footer, no good, under the rim to Krigler of Kentucky. Krigler moves out of there, pulls up, got to renew his dribble, passes to Beck and gets it right back. Into front court to Hatton with a score deadlock 32 all. Over to Smith, down the left to Krigler. Beck on a high pivot at the free throw line. Cox off the right side, gets the pass now. Moves down the right side. Guy Rogers takes it away from him beautifully. Poked it in behind his back, and Beck fouled him. That's the 2nd foul on Ed Beck. The 4th one on Kentucky. Guy Rogers made a defensive gem there as Vernon Hatton comes out of the Kentucky lineup. Earl Atkins, 23-year-old senior from Ashland, is making his first appearance of the season. Atkins, 6'4", weighs 180 pounds. Guy Rogers on the Temple free throw line for the first time in the game. He's got 7 field goals. 1:26 to play in the first half as he misses the free throw, and on the rebound, a whistle at the baseline, a foul. Wait a minute. Somebody got into the lane too soon, so Rogers will get to shoot again. 1 minute and 24 seconds here in the first half. Rogers puts that left foot right on the line. The southpaw shoots good. Temple's back in front, 33-32, as Earl Atkins moves up the backcourt for Kentucky. He has not appeared in either of the first 2 games this week. Rogers on him as he hooks a pass over to Krigler. Back over to Atkins. Down the left side to Adrian Smith. Bounce pass to Johnny Cox. One bounce dribble and back to Smith. Goes to the left corner. Has it knocked down, but picked up by Johnny Cox. He's fouled right across the arms by Brodsky, who slapped hard for the ball and hit Cox across the arms. It's the 2nd foul on Brodsky. The bonus rule is in effect as Johnny Cox makes his first appearance at the free throw line, owning 4 field goals. 1 minute, 7 seconds here in the first half. Temple 33, Kentucky 32. Johnny Cox puts both feet well apart right up on the line. Dips, flips, and hits. And the game is tied. 33 all as Cox has a bonus shot. The 3rd bonus shot of the ball game coming to him. Adrian Smith and Atkins are in a safety as Cox stands in with 1 minute, 7 seconds in this first half trying to break the tie. He does. 34-33 for the Wildcats as the Owls of Temple swing back into the attack. Josh Cody, their athletic director, a 1920 Vanderbilt graduate, sitting down on the bench to our right. Here's Guy Rogers breaking out to the top rim of the circle. Pivots. Hands off to Brodsky. Backs away from Atkins. Backs away, setting Rogers up, gives to him. Cuts out into the 3-second zone, beautifully behind his back to give a field goal to Opie Franklin. As Beck came out to pick him up, Rogers fed him a blind over-the-head pass, and Temple's in front with 40 seconds in the first half. 35-34 with Adrian Smith in front court to Atkins, off the right to Krigler. Krigler from 25 feet misses. Adrian Smith rebounded, slapped in the face by Brodsky, and gives over to Johnny Cox. Cox double team, gives a blind pass up into the air that Beck finally secures. Cox from the left corner misses. Off with it is Krigler, and Rogers went for him but couldn't get it away. Over to Atkins now, sets it up. Down the right side to Krigler with 15 seconds to go. In the right corner to Cox. Has it taken away from him by Jay Norman, but he can't hold it. It's out of bounds, and Temple will get it. We got only 7 seconds to go now as Brodsky gets it in play to Guy Rogers. There are 3 seconds to go as he comes in front court, and from 35 feet he missed it. And the first half is over with Temple in front. Well, the thrilling first half has pulled up to a screeching halt before the standing room only crowd. Temple 35, Kentucky 34. We'll have individual scoring in just a moment. Right now, let's take 10 seconds for station identification. This is the Standard Oil Sports Network.
WVLK, Lexington, Kentucky.
Back to the Coliseum here in Lexington, where Temple is out in front of the Wildcats by 1 point at halftime. The leading scorer, as perhaps you've guessed if you followed this broadcast along, is the Temple co-captain Guy Rogers with 15 points on 7 field goals and a free throw. 15 points for Guy Rogers. Next for the Owls is Mel Brodsky with 8 points on 4 field goals. Bill Kennedy, the sophomore guard, has picked up 6 points on 2 field goals and 2 free throws. Jay Norman has picked up 4 points on 2 field goals and 2 points for Opie Franklin on 1 field goal. Van Patten, the 6'8" Temple center, did not score, and Dan Fleming, his replacement, did not score. He missed 1 free throw. For the University of Kentucky, John Krigler is the leading scorer with 11 points. 4 field goals, 3 out of 4 on the free throw line. Next, only 1 point back, is Johnny Cox with 10 points. 4 field goals and 2 free throws. Adrian Smith, third in line with 8 points, 3 field goals, 2 out of 4 on the free throw line. Next, with 3 points, is Ed Beck, a field goal and 1 out of 2 at the free throw line. Vernon Hatton has been limited to 2 points on a pair of free throws in 3 tries, and Hatton has been shut out, not a field goal in this ball game, coming into the game averaging 23 points a game. His replacement, Earl Atkins, and the only Kentucky substitution, did not score. So that is it at the end of the first half. The score here tied on 5 different occasions. Temple was ahead with 18 minutes and 36 seconds to play, 4-2, and Kentucky did not get the lead until 4 minutes and 49 seconds remained to play. In other words, Temple led for about 14 minutes through the mid portion of this first half of play. Kentucky had it tied up on Johnny Cox's pair of free throws, or went ahead on those 2 free throws, 34-33. Temple 35, Kentucky 34. We're ready to go, but no officials. The 2 referees have not shown up for the second half of play. Here's the toss, a tap. Both boys get a good piece of it. It's on the floor, free. Temple's got it as Brodsky outfought Krigler to get possession over to Guy Rogers. Off the left side, Brodsky's got it. Breaks out for the basket, 10 feet away, and he shoots good. Brodsky opens things with his 5th field goal of the game, and Temple leads 37-34. Vernon Hatton moving back up into front court now for the Wildcats. Off the left to Krigler. Krigler passes to Adrian Smith, deep. Off to Krigler, down the left side to Hatton, back to Krigler. Krigler pulls it up over his head, shoots in the left corner to Hatton, back outside to Krigler, over to Adrian Smith. Smith moves down the right side, double team gives to Beck. Top rim of the circle, over to Krigler, takes the shot. No good, off the rim to Rogers of Temple. It's a 2-2 break against Krigler and Smith. Rogers goes to the free throw line, left open, drops it in. Guy Rogers gets his 8th field goal, and Temple leads 39-34. 2 quick Temple field goals in 50 minutes. Seconds, rather. Here's Beck on the pivot, turns and shoots from 15 feet and misses. Guy Rogers rebounds, Adrian Smith knocks it away, and Hatton picks it up. Off the left side to Cox from 15 feet, he shoots way short. Krigler rebounds and is tied up with it. Jump ball on the Kentucky free throw line. We've played only 1 minute and 8 seconds, and Temple has increased its lead to 5 points. Temple won the last time they played here in the Coliseum. Krigler and Rogers jumping, giving Kentucky 3 inches height advantage. The tap goes back to Krigler from Hatton over to Adrian Smith from 25 feet. He hits. Adrian Smith with his 4th field goal cuts the Temple lead to 3 points, 39-36. Guy Rogers, a left-hander, moving up over the midcourt stripe, gives off to Kennedy, coming to the left side with a bounce pass to Norman. Back to Kennedy, off the screen, he breaks out into the 3-second zone. Gives off to Brodsky from 10 feet, he misses. Up for it, a beautiful rebound by Ed Beck. Shoots it up to Adrian Smith in front court down the left side. Free throw line deep. Gives off to Beck, out to Johnny Cox. Cox takes a 1-bounce dribble on the left side. Bounce pass out to Smith to Hatton at top rim of the circle. Good. And Vernon Hatton gets his 1st field goal of the ball game to move Kentucky back within 1 point. Each team has picked up 2 field goals in the second half. Brodsky and Rogers of Temple, Smith and Hatton of Kentucky. So we're back at our halftime margin of 1 point for Temple. Brodsky to Kennedy at the top of the circle. Breaks right, screen, and a jump shot good off the free throw line. For Bill Kennedy, his 3rd field goal, and Temple leads 41-38. Vernon Hatton moving up the backcourt. Comes over the line, gives to Adrian Smith. Off the right corner to Hatton, looked at Krigler under the basket open, but couldn't get it to him. Over to Cox by way of Smith. Back over to Smith. Smith breaks out, And a beautiful play by Guy Rodgers, who from the rear of Adrian Smith slammed the ball out of bounds onto the Kentucky basket. Beck will put it in play. Rodgers has pulled a couple of defensive gems in this game so far. Here it is to Cox, and a hook. It's good. Johnny Cox, with his 5th field goal of the game to lead Kentucky in that department, puts the Wildcats within 1 point at 41-40 as each team has 3 field goals. Guy Rodgers from 20 feet shoots to the right, no good. Ed Beck gets the rebound. Out to Vernon Hatton, who comes in front court for the Cats down the right side. Gives out to Krigler, to Johnny Cox moving to the left, off to Adrian Smith. Breaks out, fakes a shot, passes to Cox in the corner, goes by Jay Norman, double team, shoots, and Tink Patton's got it. Cox takes it away from him, hooks and hits the boards. Beck drops the rebound, picked up by Krigler, moving to the right. Brodsky picks up on him. It's knocked down, picked up by Krigler, given to Cox. One-hander, no good. Van Patten's got it for Temple. Over to Jay Norman. Out to Guy Rodgers. Temple 41, Kentucky 40. As each team has scored 3 field goals in this half of play. Rodgers in front court now, passing over to Bill Kennedy, the sophomore. From 20 feet, a shot's no good with a whistle on the play. 3-second violation by Jay Norman of Temple. Gives the ball out of bounds to Kentucky in backcourt. Adrian Smith over to Vernon Hatton, who moves in front court for the Cats. Back on the pivot, gets the pass. Hatton goes by and he throws it. It's taken away by Cox and flipped up by Kennedy to Rodgers. 1-on-1 against Adrian Smith. Behind, he's back beautifully to Kennedy, who misses the shot. Tapped up by Norman, no good. Back to Kennedy, under the basket to Norman. He hooks, no good. And Ed Beck rebounds, and Kennedy fouls him. Or rather, Norman ties him up from the rear. Ed Beck, standing 6'7", will have 4 inches height advantage on Norman at the Temple free throw line. Here's the toss, the tap to Hatton. Hands over to Cox, who moves up in front court. Norman makes a run at him and misses. Outside to Hatton. Comes down the middle from the free throw line. Shoots short under the rim. Slapped back by Krigler, but Rodgers has got it for Temple. Goes in on Adrian Smith behind to Norman, who shoots no good, and a foul is called against John Krigler of Kentucky. It is Krigler's 2nd personal foul. It is the first one of the second half after 4 minutes and 10 seconds of play. Brodsky heads for the Temple bench with apparently contact lens that he's taken out, given to the trainer. Jay Norman makes his first appearance at the Temple free throw line. Temple has hit 3 out of 4 as a team, and Norman will take 2 with a 1-point Temple lead. Rodgers and Kennedy stand in the center court jump circle as Norman sights for his first free throw. It's good. Temple leads 42-40. Second shot good. Temple 43, Kentucky 40. As Vernon Hatton moves up the backcourt. Over the center line. Passes to Smith. High pass to Beck in the pivot. Hit right off the head of Smith. Cox and Kennedy fight for it. Kennedy gets it. Gets to Rodgers, wide open, lays it in. Guy Rodgers' 9th field goal. And Temple leads 45-40 as Kentucky makes 2 mistakes and quickly loses 4 points. Adrian Smith to Vernon Hatton. Over to Krigler, down the left to Cox. Cox gives to Beck in the pivot. Knocked away by Guy Rodgers, and it's out of bounds to Kentucky. Vernon Hatton will put it in play on the left side of the offensive court. Man, against this Temple team, you can't make a mistake in passing. Here it is to Adrian Smith. In the pivot to Beck. Outside to Hatton from 15 feet. His shot's good. 2nd field goal for Vernon Hatton, cutting the Temple lead to 3 points, 45-42. Rodgers moves up the backcourt, directing the attack. Gives off to Kennedy, moving to the left as Rodgers goes in under the basket. It's to Norman, back to Kennedy. Spins in, gets to the free throw line, gives to Rodgers for a 15-footer that's off the rim, no good. Slapped off of the head of Norman, picked up by Kennedy, shoots good from the free throw line. Bill Kennedy with his 4th field goal, and it's Temple 47, Kentucky 42. Vernon Hatton back in front court for the Wildcats now, gives over to Krigler. Back outside to Hatton, off the right to Adrian Smith, who dropped the ball but recovered before it went out of bounds. And Brodsky slaps it down, and he picks it up out to Cox. Back over to Adrian Smith. A 1-bounce dribble over to Krigler, down the left to Hatton. With Norman on him, he gives to Beck in the pivot. A 1-bounce dribble, and he's fouled from the rear by Van Patten of Temple. That's the 3rd foul on Van Patten. Ed Beck up on the line for 1 shot with 14 minutes and 15 seconds to play. Beck has hit 1 for 2 at the free throw line. Beck, a two-hander from between the knees. Good. Cutting the Temple lead to 3 points. 4 points, rather. 47-43. In front court now, Kennedy to Rogers. Down the right side for Temple. Goes to the baseline, and Adrian Smith tripped him up. He walked with it, and it's out of bounds to Kentucky. Smith, out of bounds, passes deep across the backcourt to Hatton. Takes a return pass, moving over the midcourt stripe. Bounce pass to Hatton on the right side. Back out to Adrian Smith over to Cox on the left side. Cox moves down the left side to the corner with Kennedy on him. Turns, passes out to Krigler. Out front to Adrian Smith with Hatton under the basket. He gives to Beck. Back to Odie Smith. Moves in against Tink Patton to the baseline. Gives to Johnny Cox. From the right side, no good. Beck, a beautiful tap, no good. Krigler knocks it in. John Krigler with his 5th field goal pulls Kentucky within 2 points. 47-45. Guy Rogers back to the attack court for Temple. Turns his back to Smith. Gives to Brodsky. Pulls up 10 feet away and misses. Krigler gets the rebound for Kentucky. Comes out of there with it. Pulls up in backcourt. Calls Hatton in close quarters and passes to him. Moves up into the attack court. Down the left side to Adrian Smith. In the pivot to Cox. Hooks over Jay Norman. Good. Johnny Cox leads Kentucky with his 6th field goal into a 47-all tie after 7 minutes of the second half. Guy Rogers back in front court for Temple, dribbles behind his back and charges into Adrian Smith, committing his 3rd foul of the game. For Guy Rogers, Bill Kennedy, Tink Van Patten, 3 personal fouls each. 12 minutes and 55 seconds here in the ball game. And Brodsky did not break any contact lens. It's some kind of a metal from around his neck that was torn off. Adrian Smith, who's hit 2, missed 2, shoots good. And Kentucky is on top for the first time in the second half. 48-47 as Rogers moves back in front court for Temple. Down the left side to Norman. Breaks out against Johnny Cox, loses the ball. Brodsky picks it up, gives to Van Patten to the left. Off to Brodsky. He's open and hits. And for Mel Brodsky, that's 6 field goals, and Temple is back in front at 49-48. Adrian Smith in front court to Hatton, to the right to Krigler. He takes a 20-foot shot, no good. High off of the rim, it's tapped up beautifully by Johnny Cox. 7 field goals for Johnny Cox. Kentucky back in front, 50-49. In front court, Guy Rogers of Temple whips to the pivot to Van Patten. A 1-bounce dribble over to Brodsky. Outside to Kennedy. Jump shot. Good. Off the top rim of the circle for his 5th field goal. And Temple leads 51-50. Hatton slowly coming up the backcourt, talking to Krigler. Passes to Adrian Smith. Bounce pass to Beck in the pivot. Back to Smith at the free throw line. And here's the jump shot. Good. Adrian Smith with his 5th field goal. Kentucky leads 52-51. The pace is terrific. Which team will crack? Guy Rogers in front court. Moves to the right side. Goes to the corner and takes a jump shot. No good. Beautiful rebound by Johnny Cox, who went out over the head of Norman to hook it in. He passes up to Vernon Hatton, moving in front court. Comes in, goes down the middle, and is knocked out of his hands, out of bounds. Kentucky will put it in play under its own basket with timeout Temple. Listen to this roar. This crowd of 12,500 roaring its approval of a tremendous ball game. With 11 minutes, 35 seconds to go. Kentucky 52, Temple 51. And let us take 10 seconds for station identification. This is the Standard Oil Sports Network.
WVLK, Lexington, Kentucky. The time in 1 minute, 9 o'clock.
Back to the Coliseum in Lexington. Kentucky in this half is being sparked by Johnny Cox, who has now picked up 16 points, his high for the season, on 7 field goals and 2 free throws, and 3 of those field goals in this half of play. Adrian Smith has picked up 5 points, and Vernon Hatton 4 points in this half. Beck has added 1, and Krigler 2. The warning horn sounds to start play with Kentucky in possession under their own basket. And Coach Adolph Rupp is not making a change as the Wildcats come out to a thunderous ovation. In this second half, Kentucky, after hitting 30% of its shots in the first half, has hit 8 out of 15 for a fine 69.2%. Now back to play as Beck passes over the head of Johnny Cox down into backcourt. Cox picks it up, moves over the court stripe, and hands to Adrian Smith. To the right side to Krigler. Back to Smith. To the left to Hatton. Hatton moves to the left, cautiously watching Cox. Hooks a pass to Beck at the pivot. Breaks for the basket. Pass out to Adrian Smith to Krigler. Off the left side to Cox. Fakes a jump shot. Breaks by Norman at the baseline and hooks it up short. Off of the rim. Kennedy's got it for Temple. Shoots one over for a 3-on-1 break, and Kennedy shoots good. Bill Kennedy getting his 6th field goal of the ball game. And Temple is back in front, 53-52. Hatton to Smith in front court. To Beck in the pivot. Back to Adrian Smith. Comes to the right. Gives to Cox. Comes outside on a one-bounce dribble. Gives to Adrian Smith. To Krigler. Down the left to Hatton. Outside to Adrian Smith. 25-footer is short. Off of the rim to Temple's Bill Kennedy again. Got Guy Rogers wide open. It's a gimme. Guy Rogers has 10 field goals, and Temple has picked up 4 quick points on the fast break against Kentucky, and they now lead 55-52. Up into front court, Krigler fades left to Johnny Cox. Cox takes a one-bounce dribble and a hook. Good. Cox hooking from 15 feet, gets his 8th field goal as Earl Atkins waits to come into the Kentucky lineup with Temple leading 55-54. Guy Rogers in front court for the Owls. Comes to the left side. He's picked up by Cox. Fakes him, shoots one out to Norman at the free throw line, who misses. Taken off and knocked on the floor. John Krigler's got it. Passes up to Vernon Hatton, who moves over the center court stripe. Crisscrosses with Adrian Smith coming to the left side. Passing to Smith in the pivot to Beck at the free throw line. He moves to the left, gives off to Hatton, who comes back out 10 feet away. Gives to Johnny Cox. Bounce pass outside to Hatton, over to Smith, down the left to Krigler. In the left corner, shoots, no good. Slapped up on the boards by Beck, no good. Van Patten of Temple out to Guy Rogers, who runs into Vernon Hatton. And the foul on the play, Guy Rogers of Temple, his 4th personal foul. Harry Litwack up off the Temple bench, holding his head. That one really hurt Temple. It put the 4th personal foul on Guy Rogers. Jay Norman out talking with the official. Vernon Hatton saw that Van Patten was going to come out from under that basket with a pass to Rogers, and he lined himself up so if Rogers took it on the move, he would have to run over him. So that is 4 fouls on Rogers. It is the first one on Temple in this half of play. And Vernon Hatton, who's hit 2 out of 3, will shoot 1. He shoots, and the ball game is tied up, 55 all. And into the lineup, Earl Atkins replacing Hatton. Atkins was in briefly in the first half and did not score. 9 minutes and 41 seconds to play. Guy Rogers goes to the Temple bench to get a towel. Slams it back on the floor in disgust as he takes the pass from Kennedy, and we go back to play. Up in the front court to Kennedy and back to Rogers, moving to the right side. Off a screen from Brodsky. He moves out, gives to Kennedy, who breaks in against Earl Atkins under the basket. Shoots it out to Norman from 10 feet. He misses. Tapped up by Van Patten. It is his first field goal of the ball game. Van Patten scores his first point of the game to put Temple in front, 57-55. Atkins to Smith in front court. Passing over to Krigler now. Down the left to Johnny Cox. A one-bounce dribble as he comes back out front and lays it over to Adrian Smith. Back to Earl Atkins. 25-foot set shot. No good. Knocked out of bounds by Guy Rogers of Temple. It goes to Kentucky. To the right of their basket, over the baseline. We've got 9 minutes to play. Temple has outscored Kentucky by 1 point now in the second half. Pass to Adrian Smith. Over to Cox in the right corner. Up the side to Atkins and out to Smith. He moves to the left, gives over to Krigler, and from 15 feet, Krigler misses. Off with the rebound is Norman of Temple with a beautiful rebound. Josh Cody, the Temple athletic director, yelling at the official. Guy Rogers now moving back in front court for the Owls. They hold a 2-point lead. Guy Rogers against Adrian Smith. Fakes right, comes back to the left, dribbles behind his back, shoots a pass to Kennedy, left wide open by Atkins, and it's in behind the backboard as Atkins partially blocked the shot. Temple will put it in play to the right of its basket over the baseline. Rogers is out of bounds. Bounce pass into Kennedy. Double team gives to Rogers out of the right corner. He misses. High off of the board is Johnny Cox. It's knocked off his head and in the basket. Let's see who the official scored. By who? Jay Norman gets credit for the field goal, his 3rd one of the game. 59-55 for Temple as Krigler hits from the top rim of the circle for Kentucky. Don Krigler's 6th field goal as we go into the last 8 minutes of the ball game. Temple 59, Kentucky 57. Rogers in front court, gives to Kennedy down the left side to Norman. Drives in on Johnny Cox, falls away with a shot that's no good. Off with it is Brodsky, who falls away and misses. This time it's Norman knocking it out of bounds. And Kentucky gets it under the Temple basket. Adrian Smith, a bounce pass into Atkins, who moves up the backcourt now. 7.5 minutes to play. Temple leading by 2 points. Over to Krigler, to Adrian Smith, to the right. He fakes Rogers. From 15 feet, he misses. Off of the rim, Krigler taps it out of bounds, and Temple gets it. Clock is stopped with 7 minutes, 21 seconds to go as the ball goes in behind the backboard. Guy Rogers gets the incoming pass and swings the Owls back to the attack. Over to Kennedy, back to Rogers, angling to the right side, gives over to Brodsky. Kennedy goes by, and Brodsky shoots from the top of the circle. No good. Johnny Cox got the rebound, in under the rim of the basket. Up to Adrian Smith, moving in front court. Flips it over to Atkins, to the left side to Cox, who takes a 25-foot shot. No good. Patton rebounds for Temple. Out to Guy Rogers. Tried to pull Beck up on his back and failed to do it. Off the right to Kennedy, to Norman, to Van Patten in the pivot. Over to Norman at the free throw line. Turns quickly, and he misses. Beck rebounds. Van Patten knocks it down. Beck fights his way out of there with it. And Kentucky's got a 4-on-1 fast break. Atkins from 10 feet hits. Earl Atkins gets his first point of the season. And Kentucky ties it up 59-all as Harry Litwack off the Temple bench yelling to his three men. Kennedy, Norman, and Rogers moving in front court. Kentucky's got it tied up now with 6.5 minutes to play. Jay Norman over to Bill Kennedy. Weaves, and Atkins knocks it out of bounds on him. Off the left side of the offensive court, Kennedy passes into Rogers. Fakes, breaks into the top rim of the circle, and backs away from Adrian Smith. Gives over to Kennedy. Moving to the right side, Krigler picks up on him. Kennedy back outside to Rogers. Rogers looked toward the Temple bench. His coach yelling for time, and Rogers takes it. It's the second time out of the ball game for Temple. 6 minutes, 3 seconds to go. Kentucky and Temple deadlocked at 59-all. Here are some other scores tonight. St. John's of Brooklyn has defeated St. Joe of Philadelphia. The score, St. John's 65, St. Joseph's 58. In the Georgia Invitational Tournament, Winston-Salem, North Carolina beat Benedict, South Carolina 73-66. Those are the late scores. The ball game has been tied now 8 times as we stand even here at 59-all for the last 6 minutes and 3 seconds of play. In this second half, Johnny Cox has contributed 8 points, John Krigler 4, Ed Beck 1, Earl Atkins 2, Adrian Smith 5, and Vernon Hatton 5. Johnny Cox is now Kentucky's leading scorer on this his best night with 18 points. Temple has the ball at midcourt as the warning horn sounds to go back to play. Earl Atkins remains in at a guard. The entire Temple team seated on a bench, using every second of their timeout as Kentucky is ready to go. Temple taking every second that the officials are going to let them have. Now begin to move out on the floor. At this point, Kentucky has hit 11 field goals in 21 shots. This half, 65.6%. Bill Kennedy of Temple is out of bounds to put it in play to Guy Rogers just in front court. He gets it. Moves in against Adrian Smith. Bounce pass down the left side to Brodsky. Breaks out, gets away from Krigler and shoots. No good. Norman taps, no good. Johnny Cox gets the rebound for Kentucky. Calls Adrian Smith in, passes to him up to Earl Atkins. Atkins comes in front court for the Cats now as they've got the ball on even terms with Temple. Down the left to Krigler. Back outside to Cox, back to Krigler. To Atkins, over to Adrian Smith. Smith down the right to Krigler, brings it out, gives to Atkins. He sets from 25 feet. Good. Earl Atkins gets his second straight field goal. Kentucky leads 61-59. Back in front court, Guy Rogers of Temple over to Kennedy, back to Rogers, down the right side to Brodsky. Flips it right back to Kennedy, to Rogers. Breaks out to the top of the circle, can't get a shot away on Adrian Smith. Gives over to Kennedy, breaking to the right from 10 feet. Shot's no good, but a whistle on the play. A foul has been called against Earl Atkins of Kentucky, his first foul, and that is the second foul on Kentucky in this half. 5 minutes, 10 seconds to play, and we've had only 3 personals in this second half. 1 shot to Bill Kennedy of Temple, who has not missed a free throw in this game. Kentucky with a 2-point edge. Here's Kennedy's free throw, good. Kentucky 61, Temple 60, as Adrian Smith feeds Krigler in front court. Back outside to Smith, setting it up. Beck goes into a high pivot at the free throw line as he works it down to Krigler, out to Earl Atkins. Has the shot blocked beautifully by Guy Rogers, but Johnny Cox races into backcourt to get the ball at the Temple free throw line. Over to Earl Atkins, up the way to Adrian Smith. Back to Atkins. just now coming in front court with the ball. Kentucky 61, Temple 60. Over to Krigler, back to Atkins. Atkins passes out to Johnny Cox. Back over to Atkins. Atkins back out to Adrian Smith. Setting it up. Down the left side to Cox. Outside to Atkins. Fakes a shot. Moves down the left side. Gives to Krigler in the left corner. Krigler moves out of there with it. Gives to Smith out front. 4.5 minutes to go. Kentucky 61, Temple 60. Off to Krigler. Fakes to break. Kennedy cuts him off. Out to Atkins by way of Adrian Smith. Fans yelling, let's go, as the pass goes into Beck now on the pivot, a high one. Over to Adrian Smith from 20 feet. No good. Kept up by Krigler. He's got it. Brings it back out front. Down in the right corner to Atkins. In the pivot to Beck. Outside to Krigler. Fakes, breaks on Kennedy, who cuts him off beautifully. Over to Beck to Atkins to Cox. Jump shot good. Johnny Cox gets his 9th field goal. And it's Kentucky 63, Temple 60. Up in the front court now. Here's Krigler knocking it out of bounds. Temple keeps possession on the right side of their offensive court. And this is Kentucky's longest lead of the ball game. 3 points. 63-60 as Guy Rodgers comes back in front court for Temple. Over to Bill Kennedy, down the left to Norman. Back to Kennedy, breaks out to the free throw line. Cuts in, and a foul on John Krigler. Coming out to pick him up. He bumped him, and that's the 3rd foul on Krigler. And it's also the 3rd foul on Kentucky in this half with 3 minutes and 32 seconds to play. Bill Kennedy's on the free throw line, too, and he hasn't missed one. Guy Rodgers all the way back to the top rim of the Kentucky free throw circle in a safety, trying to thwart any possible attempt by a Kentucky fast break. He comes up to the midcourt to be with Brodsky. Free throw no good by Kennedy. Tap back to him. He drops it, picks it up. Passes back outside to Rodgers. Rodgers breaks to the right, and from 15 feet, he missed it. Off for the rebound is Cox, and Norman drops it over to Patton, who lays it up. No good. Fight for the ball this time. Brodsky goes for it, gets it for Temple, and a whistle at the baseline. Atkins is called for pushing, his 2nd foul of the game, and that's the 4th one on Kentucky. Clock is stopped now with 3 minutes and 19 seconds to go as Brodsky goes to the Temple free throw line. This is the first time Brodsky has been on the free throw line tonight. However, he's contributed 6 field goals to the Temple attack. They trail by 3 points. As Brodsky shoots, it's good. And Temple pulls within 2, 63-61. Adrian Smith to Earl Atkins in front court. Back to Smith. Back over to Atkins. Back to Smith. Kentucky's guards seem to be in a state of confusion right now. High pass to Beck outside to Adrian Smith. Moves down the left side against Norman. Double team comes out, gives to Beck again. Off the left side to Johnny Cox. Out to Smith to Atkins. Atkins looks at the pivot. Pulls it up with Rodgers stabbing for it. A bounce pass to Beck. Beck a 1-bounce dribble. Turns, fakes a shot. Over to Krigler. Breaks for the basket. Lays it up. No good. Beck taps. No good. Outside, Adrian Smith's got it. Comes into the free throw line. Gives to Beck. Beck has it taken away from him. Over to Smith. To Rodgers breaking, and a foul is called. A foul is called on the play. Let's see what's been called. Ed Beck is called for his 3rd personal foul of the game. Kentucky is getting in trouble on personal fouls now. They've committed 5 in this half, and the bonus rule will be in effect after 1 more. And Bill Kennedy's back at the Temple free throw line, where he's hit 3 for 4. 2 minutes, 34 seconds. Kentucky with a 2-point lead. Kentucky defensing wide as Kennedy shoots. No good. Beck taps over to Adrian Smith. Moves up to front court, and Norman kicked the ball away from him. That's twice in a row. Temple has stolen the ball from Kentucky here in the clutch. Guy Rodgers now fouled by Johnny Cox, committing the 6th foul of the half. That's Johnny Cox's 1st foul. Kentucky getting in trouble now, brings Coach Adolph Rupp up to his feet. 2 minutes, 24 seconds to play as Guy Rodgers goes to the Temple free throw line. Now any foul committed by Kentucky brings the bonus rule into effect. Guy Rodgers has not missed a free throw as his team trails by only 2 points. Rodgers stands in to look. The left-hander shoots, and it's good. Now Kentucky's lead is only 1 point, 63-62, as Temple has cut it down to 1 point on free throws. Earl Atkins moves it up to the front court. High pass to Beck on the pivot. Outside to Adrian Smith. Moves to the left from 20 feet. He missed it. Tapped up by Atkins. No good. Smith races in. Norman slaps it to Rodgers. And Temple has got 3 men wide open. And Atkins fouled him as he laid it in good. And Temple's on top with free throws coming. It's timeout, Kentucky. They're in trouble. For Earl Atkins, that is his 3rd personal foul of the ball game. and Vernon Hatton gets ready to come back in. Brodsky's field goal is good. His 7th one. Temple leads 64-63, and they got a free throw coming when we go back to play. Well, Kentucky seemed to tighten up when they got their 3-point lead at 63-60. Temple twice stole the ball from them. They picked up their points at the free throw line, and that time when they got the ball from the Cats, Temple had 3 men wide open. Atkins, trying to save, fouled him from the rear. Here's another late score. St. Bonaventure has defeated Wichita by 9 points. St. Bonaventure 61, Wichita 52. Vernon Hatton has replaced Earl Atkins at guard. But Kentucky is already down by 1 point, and a Temple free throw to go with 2 minutes 5 seconds yet to play. Earl Atkins committed 3 personal fouls in only 3 minutes and 5 seconds. And all the Cats have fouled here in this run, with the exception of Adrian Smith. As Kentucky now is giving the bonus shot up each time it commits a foul. Of course, the bonus rule does not apply here because the field goal was awarded. The official warning horn is sounded. The referee's blowing their whistle, and they cannot get either ball club to come out. 64-63. Temple leading Kentucky. And now Brodsky will go to the free throw line as we go back to play, trying to give a 2-point lead to the Owls. Now Brodsky steps in at the free throw line, puts the right foot right up at the stripe. Brodsky looks at the basket, and here's the shot. It's good. Temple 65, Kentucky 63, as Adrian Smith gives in to Vernon Hatton. We've got 2 minutes to go. Hatton is in front court. Pulls up, fakes to Beck at the pivot, then gives him a high pass, and it's knocked down by Van Patten again, and Temple steals again. As Kentucky continues to try to get the ball to the pivot, and for the second straight time, Temple has taken it away. Guy Rogers up in front court now. Temple is in the driver's seat. 2-point lead. And here's a pass whipped to the left side to Brodsky. 1 minute, 40 seconds to go. It's back over to Guy Rogers. Rogers fakes on Adrian Smith, breaks to the left from 10 feet. He missed it. Slapped by Norman, no good. And it is out of bounds into the Kentucky bench. The Wildcats have got possession. 1 minute and a half to play. Here it is over to Adrian Smith. Amos in front court. Down the right side to Krigler. One bounce dribbling out to Vernon Hatton, moving to the right against Brodsky. In the pivot it goes again, and it's slapped right back out. Over to Hatton, and Van Patten fouled him. For Tink Van Patten, that's 4 personal fouls. 1 minute and 14 seconds to play. And the Temple coach, Harry Litwack, comes up off the bench to yell how many times. Vernon Hatton is on the free throw line for 1 shot. He's hit 3 for 4. Temple with a 2-point edge. Hatton's free throw. Good. Score 65-64. However, Temple has got the ball now. Van Patten gets it back to Bill Kennedy. Kennedy moves up into front court with it for the Owls. They got a 1-point lead to watch. Over it goes to Guy Rogers, to Brodsky. Brodsky over to Van Patten. Temple is going to go into a freeze. Here it is to Rogers now, dribbling behind his back. Over to Van Patten as he's come out deep now. Hatton steals the ball. Goes in against Kennedy, dribbles behind his back. Goes into the basket, and he is fouled by the rear by Norman. Jay Norman of Temple committing his first personal foul of the game, and the third in this half against Temple. Vernon Hatton will get 1 shot. Vernon Hatton on the free throw line has just reduced the Temple lead to 1 point, and here's the one that could tie the game with 49 seconds to play. Hatton in cautiously to play it. He's a 2-hand free throw shooter, and here's the shot. Good. The ball game stands 65-65 on the steal by Hatton, and now timeout Temple. Their third one of the ball game. It halts the clock with 47 seconds to play. So we have built our tension to the last seconds of play. Temple brought a 35-34 lead into the second half. And the Wildcats battled back for their longest lead of the game, 63-60, when Temple cashed in a pair of free throws and a field goal to go on top. Now we've had the Cats battle back to tie it up at 65 all on a pair of free throws by Vernon Hatton. Hatton gets a great deal of credit as this is the 9th time the game has been tied. He stole the ball from Bill Kennedy and went in one-on-one, and as he turned his back to the basket to try to make an individual move, as he picked up some rebounding strength, Norman came through to foul him, and that free throw is the one that has tied the game 65-all. But Temple is in possession at midcourt with plenty of time to go, 47 seconds. Well, whatever plans Coach Adolph Rupp has made have been settled as Kentucky is ready to go, and Temple is being waved out of their huddle. We've had only 5 times out in this game. Temple is not yet near the bonus rule, while it's already in effect against Kentucky, which means Temple gets a bonus shot if they hit on any Kentucky foul. Now we're ready to go to play as Kennedy gives to Guy Rogers, and the seconds tick off. They work it back and forth, keeping it out deep. Rogers staying deep on Adrian Smith, gives over to Kennedy now, over to Brodsky. Brodsky gives over to Norman, out to Van Patten as Temple keeps the ball out deep, bringing the big man out too. There are 30 seconds to go. Temple wants to get Rogers perhaps one good shot. Let's see what the strategy is. Over to Brodsky, back to Rogers, 25 seconds to go. Now Brodsky and Rogers working back and forth. There are 20 seconds to go. Timeout has been taken by Rogers, stopping the clock with 19 seconds to go. That's Temple's 4th timeout of the game. Harry Litwack, the Temple coach, standing up in the corner to meet his team as Guy Rogers yells to the bench, how many more? 1, as they've just called their 4th timeout. So with that timeout, we played a total of 28 seconds without anybody getting any closer than 30 feet to the basket. Temple made no attempt at all to shoot or work for shooting position. Now they have got 19 seconds to go. The score is 65-all as Coach Adolph Rupp and assistant Harry Lancaster right in the Kentucky huddle, laying calmly the plans of attack here. Coach Harry Litwack doing the same for Temple, and as he talks on that left hand, that index finger is pointed sharply skyward. One shot, perhaps that's what he's telling them. One, to impress upon them. Don't forget, we want the last shot of the ball game. If we miss it, we'll gamble on the overtime. 65-all is the score. And now we're ready to go back to play as Kentucky breaks its huddle. Temple led Kentucky by 1 point at halftime. Each team even now. Kentucky's outscored Temple 36-35 as we go back to play with Rogers. Kennedy working it back and forth out deep, 15 seconds to go. We'll watch the seconds now. They're becoming very important. Kennedy's got it. Rogers goes under the basket. 8 seconds over to Rogers. Here he goes. The shot, no good. Norman taps, no good. And Beck has got it outside to Hatton, and the ball game is, well, Hatton called timeout. Timeout, Kentucky. Things are different. Guy Rogers kicked that foot up in the air to indicate his disgust with himself, and Vernon Hatton called timeout as quickly as possible. 1 second to go. Kentucky 65, Temple 65. 1 second to play, and Kentucky's got the ball at midcourt. Well, here is the play situation. That clock will not start until somebody in court has got the ball. It means that Kentucky, with the ball at midcourt now, can pass in, and the clock does not start ticking until it touches the player's hand, so they might possibly be able to get a shot away. We're standing by right now to unfold 1 second of play. And the Kentucky team, with this timeout, their 3rd of the ball game, are laying plans on exactly how they want to do it. Well, we were checking the record book to find out about last year. According to our records, Kentucky did not play any overtime games last year. The Wildcats are going to line up at midcourt. Vernon Hatton will put it in play. Adrian Smith, right behind him, Johnny Cox, right behind him, Krigler, right behind him, Beck. And we got 1 second to go. Temple does not play deeply. Over to Smith, and he shoots way off the mark from the center of the court. He couldn't get it up that far in that quick of time. So the ball game is over. Final score, Kentucky 65, Temple 65. And we've got an overtime coming. Well, Temple outscored Kentucky by 1 point in the first half, 35-34. And in the second half, Kentucky has outscored Temple by 1 point, 36-35. And we'll play a 5-minute overtime. Apparently, neither team will be making a change. Well, I think the background music gives you a pretty good idea of the tempo of this basketball game and the feeling of the fans right now. 12,500 on hand for an overtime period between Kentucky and Temple. Van Patten moves up to ask something of the official score. There will be no change in the Kentucky starting lineup. There will be no change in the Temple lineup. Ed Beck will jump against Tink Van Patten. It will give Temple 1-inch height advantage. Coach Harry Litwack wants to say something with one of the officials before the start of the overtime period. Here it is, a tap to John Krigler of Kentucky. He hands off to Vernon Hatton, and the Wildcats have got the ball to start the overtime. Down the left to Krigler, out to Adrian Smith. He breaks down the side against Kennedy, comes back out to the top rim of the circle, a bounce pass over to Hatton. Down the left side to Johnny Cox, a one-bounce dribble and out to Vernon Hatton. Hatton moves to the left side, looks at Cox on the pivot, passes out to Smith. Smith looks it back, feeds him a bounce pass, off to Krigler, out to Smith. Down the right to Krigler. A one-bounce dribble out to Vernon Hatton. Hatton's got Rogers on him now. Breaks to the right. Maybe perhaps trying to foul Rogers out of there with those 4 personals on him. Over to Cox to Adrian Smith. Over to Krigler. Outside to Smith. Over to Hatton. Down the right to Cox. Cox outside to Adrian Smith. He's got Rogers on him. Breaks in, turns quickly, and gives outside to Krigler. Over to Adrian Smith to Hatton. Hatton looks to the left at Cox and passes to the right to Adrian Smith. Down the side to Krigler. Outside to Hatton. Top of the circle. Weaves. Drives into the right side. Van Patten picks him up. He passes out to Johnny Cox in the corner to Hatton. Hatton moves up this near side of the court, passes out deep to Adrian Smith. We've played 1 minute of the overtime now without a shot being taken. In it goes to Beck, back to Hatton, breaks in against Tink Van Patten. Jay Norman picks him up, and Hatton stepped out of bounds. It goes to Temple without a shot. Guy Rogers has got the ball now as Kentucky worked for 1 minute and 10 seconds and didn't get a shot. Here's Bill Kennedy in front court to Norman on the left side. Back to Kennedy from the free throw line. He shoots. It's good. And Temple is in front on the 7th field goal by Bill Kennedy. 67-65 with 3.5 minutes to go. Up in front court is Smith. Over to Hatton. Down the left side to Johnny Cox. Takes a 25-foot jump shot that's no good. It's short. Knocked down. Kennedy's got it for Temple. Hands it over to Jay Norman and back to Kennedy. Up the way to Guy Rogers. Now Temple wants to slow it down. He's just now moving over the midcourt stripe with Temple leading 67-65. Kennedy down the left side to Tink Van Patten. Out to Brodsky. Over to Guy Rogers. To the right to Kennedy. 3 minutes to play. 2 minutes gone in this overtime. Temple's had 1 shot and hit it. Kentucky's had 1 shot and missed it. That's it for over 2 minutes of play. Guy Rogers over to Kennedy now. Out to Van Patten. Van Patten is out deep. Temple keeping the middle cleared. Over to Brodsky, back to Rogers. Rogers looks at Norman, moves in against Adrian Smith and passes over to Kennedy. Kennedy back over to Brodsky, over to Van Patten, and in this overtime period, Temple has got a lead, 2 points, 2.5 minutes to play. Guy Rogers out deep, gives over to Brodsky now. Brodsky unopposed, hands off now to Jay Norman. Temple freezing the ball with a 2-point lead. Over to Guy Rogers. Rogers pulls it up over his head, holding it away to Adrian Smith. Goes into a dribble. Beck stabs for it and fouled him. Nope, wait a minute. Timeout. Temple has been taken. So that is the 5th timeout for Temple. With 2 minutes and 13 seconds now in the overtime period. Temple 67, Kentucky 65. Let's pause 10 seconds for station identification. This is the Standard Oil Sports Network.
WVLK, Lexington, Kentucky. The time is 29 minutes past 9 o'clock.
Here at the Coliseum in Lexington, tension is very great. As we came into the overtime period, deadlock 65 all. Kentucky got the opening tap and worked for 1 minute and 10 seconds. Vernon Hatton went in under the basket, double teamed. He stepped on the baseline and Temple got the ball. They came back up court and very quickly Bill Kennedy took the shot for Temple and hit it. And that's the difference in the teams now. Kentucky, after the shot by Kennedy, came back and Cox missed. And now it is Temple's ball with 2 minutes and 13 seconds to go. Harry Litwack sitting on the Temple bench, looking right straight into the floor as Bill Kennedy out of bounds gets the ball and passes just in backcourt to Rogers. He steps in against Adrian Smith. Dribbles behind his back. Comes up double team, gives over to Kennedy, who breaks in. Hatton knocked it off his foot, and it's on the floor, a jump ball. 2 minutes, 2 seconds to play as we got a jump at the Temple free throw line. It is John Krigler against Kennedy, and it gives Kentucky 4 inches height advantage. Here's the tap. The Hatton knocked away from him off the head of Kennedy, and the ball is saved by Temple. That was a beautiful play by Brodsky, and it could be enough to win the ball game as the tap was easily controlled by Krigler. He had 4 inches, and here is Rogers colliding. Adrian Smith knocked it down, but Brodsky picks it up again. There's 2 plays by that guy on defense that could make the difference in this game. And now Brodsky's wide open for a shot that's good. Well, if they win this game, Temple's going to have to carry this boy Brodsky off the floor. 69-65 for Temple. Hatton gives over to Cox, moves out, gives to Adrian Smith. He breaks to the left, pulls up, gives to Cox, and a 15-foot hook is good. That's 10 field goals for Johnny Cox. 69-67. Rogers in front court with 1 minute and 15 seconds to go. Passes outside to Brodsky, puts it over to Kennedy. Kennedy back to Brodsky. Brodsky moves to the left side. We're in the overtime here at the Coliseum. Down the left it goes to Kennedy, and a foul is called. Charging on Kennedy of Temple. However, Johnny Cox will get only 1 free throw. 1 minute and 2 seconds to go. Josh Cody, the Temple athletic director, is up off the Temple bench now, yelling to the Temple coach, Harry Litwack, to come back to the bench. Litwack wants to know what his situation on times out is, as Johnny Cox on the Kentucky free throw line is up for 1 shot. 1 minute, 2 seconds to go. Cox shoots, and it's no good. Knocked to the outside, and out of bounds goes to Kentucky. There are 58 seconds to go as Hatton passes into Adrian Smith. Back to Hatton down the left to Cox. Out to Smith, 50 seconds to play. Temple 69, Kentucky 67. Hatton has it knocked down, fights in, gets it, picks it up, hooks it out to Adrian Smith from 15 feet. Good. That is 6 field goals for Adrian Smith, who ties the ball game 69 all. 35 seconds to go, and Temple has got the ball. Harry Litwack on the Temple bench really suffering agony. Everybody is. 25 seconds to go. 69 all the score as Guy Rogers stays out deep dribbling. And once again, Temple appears to want just the last shot. There are now 16 seconds to go. Rogers out, fakes to break, turns and leaves Smith. Now comes to the left side. Comes back out deep with 10 seconds to go. He moves to the left. There are 8 seconds to go. Here he makes his move for the shot. Spins to the left and shoots. It is good. It is good, and Temple wins. Adrian Smith gets it with 1 second to go in timeout, Kentucky. Well, it worked, and it didn't work. The ball game ended tied up 65 all as Guy Rogers missed the last second shot. And now this one he hit, and it is only his 4th field goal of this half. He had 1 shot. It went into the nets with 3 seconds to go, and as soon as it went in, Beck pitched it to Hatton and called timeout. Well, we've got 1 second to go. 1 second. Can Kentucky score? They can only tie, unless they should be fouled, which would be highly improbable with only 1 second to go. Well, it's Temple 71, Kentucky 69. The fans now begin to pour for the exits. They have set through 40 minutes of regulation play, 4 minutes and 59 seconds of overtime play, and they walk out. This could be the most thrilling play of the season, you know. This time, John Krigler will put the ball in play for Kentucky. Ed Beck's under the basket. 1 second to go. Pass to Hatton from 35 feet. It's good! How about that? How about it? Vernon Hatton did it. And it's tied up. Ball game's over. Another overtime coming. Stand by. Stand by. It looks as though Sputnik just went off. Coats, hats, sweaters, jackets, everything flying through the air as Vernon Hatton from 45 feet has hit a shot with 1 second to go in the overtime that leaves the ball game Kentucky 71, Temple 71, and stand by for another 5-minute overtime. We had just finished saying, with the people beginning to walk out, that they were walking out on what could be the most thrilling play of the season. And by golly, the 12,500 who saw it will never forget it. And those people standing outside have just robbed themselves of one of the greatest sports thrills you'll ever have. With 1 second to go, Temple leading by 2 points. John Krigler pitched the ball just in front court to Vernon Hatton, who had time enough to sit and shoot, and it was in there to tie it up. Here's some late scores. Army beat Kings Point 98-58, and LaSalle beat Albright 83-55. We estimated Hatton's shot at 45 feet. They say now 47 feet. We were going by the fact that it was right at midcourt, and so 47 feet will be the official judgment. 47-foot set shot by Vernon Hatton. And ironically, it is only his 3rd field goal of the game. There'll be an awful lot of folks in church tomorrow. Can't sing above a whisper. But boy, they're putting out right now. One of the officials looking at Vernon Hatton seems to be restraining himself from wanting to shake his hand. Congratulations would be in order for anybody that could accomplish that feat. There is not a change in either lineup. Beck and Van Patten will jump center for our second 5-minute overtime. Gives Temple 1-inch height advantage. Here we go. Tap down on the floor, high in the air. Temple's got it. Guy Rogers has it fed back by Brodsky. Brodsky has been tremendous in this overtime situation. Guy Rogers playing under the heat of 4 personals. Same thing for Van Patten and Kennedy. Here it is to Norman. Back to Kennedy as Temple works it. Over to Guy Rogers. Adrian Smith falls and Rogers shoots. No good. Beck rebounds. And it is knocked away from him. Norman picks it up, gives to Rogers, who lays it in, but a foul, no goal. It will not count. A foul has been called. Johnny Cox has been called for a foul. 24, Johnny Cox has just drawn his 2nd personal foul. 4 minutes and 35 seconds in the overtime period, and the bonus shot does apply. Norman has not missed a free throw in this game. Stands in to take it. Shot's no good. Johnny Cox got the rebound. Way high in the air to get that one off the basket. Over to Hatton, yelling up in front court to Krigler. Down the right side to Krig. Mows out, gets to Adrian Smith. Breaks in against Rogers. Turns, comes back outside, gets to Cox from 15 feet. No good. Cox has it knocked away by Van Patten, and it goes to Temple. Temple 71, Kentucky 71. Each team's had the ball once in overtime. The second overtime, and neither team has scored. Back in front court is Guy Rogers of the Owls. The Owls got 3 men in there with 4 fouls on them. They got to play it mighty cool defensively. Over to Brodsky to Kennedy. Kennedy breaks out to the free throw line, pivots and passes over to Brodsky. Takes the shot, and it's no good. Short. Van Patten taps up, no good. Norman rebounds and shoots, no good. Ed Beck's got it. Over to Adrian Smith. Boy, Temple had 3 shots in. Teeter on that rim. Off the left to Cox. Holds it up over his head. Passes out to Hatton. Back to Cox in the left corner. Back out to Vernon Hatton. Over to Adrian Smith. Down the right to Krigler. Back out to Smith. Hatton yelling at him all the while. Cox brings it out, gives to Smith. He breaks down the left side against Kennedy. Then Norman picks him up and he shoots. A foul on Norman of Temple. That's the second personal on Jay Norman. Adrian Smith of Kentucky goes to the free throw line where he has hit 3, missed 2. 3 minutes and 23 seconds in the second overtime period. Smith shoots. It's good. Bonus shot coming. Kentucky's on top by 1 point. Adrian Smith bonus. No good. Cox rebounds. Drops it. Picks it up. Fights out into the left corner to hold possession. Out to Vernon Hatton. And Kentucky leads 72-71. Gives in to Beck. Hands over to Hatton. Off the right to Krigler. Back outside to Adrian Smith and over to Johnny Cox. Down the left corner to Vernon Hatton. Kentucky 72, Temple 71. Hatton drives for the basket, knocked away. Picked up by Guy Rogers, 3-on-1 against Smith. Rogers whips over, knocked up in the air by Krigler, taken by Norman. The shot is missed, a fight for the ball. Who's got it? Nobody. A foul has been called. Nope, a jump ball has been called. 2 minutes, 53 seconds to play in this second overtime period. Guy Rogers at 6 feet, jumping against Krigler, and it gives Kentucky 3 inches height advantage. The tap goes to Van Patten of Temple. Outside to Brodsky. Over to Guy Rogers. Kentucky leading 72-71. We're in our second overtime period. Rogers from 25 feet misses. Van Patten taps twice. No good. Borman taps. It's good. Jay Norman going high in the air to get his 4th field goal. Goal's good, and a foul on Vernon Hatton is his 2nd one of the game. Now Temple leads by 1 point. And Jay Norman, with his 4th field goal of the game, is on the free throw line where he's hit 2 for 3. 2 minutes, 37 seconds to play. Temple 73, Kentucky 72. Norman sights 1 free throw coming, and it's no good. Tapped up into the air. Adrian Smith's got it, dropped it, picks it up, and passes over to Vernon Hatton. Comes up into front court with it. Gives to Smith. Down the left to Cox, who brings it out. Gives to Hatton, moving to the left side. Hatton breaks to the baseline, shoots a pass out to Beck to Cox to Adrian Smith, breaks to the right from 10 feet, no good. Beck taps, no good. And a jump ball as it comes off. Brodsky and Hatton will jump. Vernon Hatton at 6'3" will have 1 inch height advantage with 2 minutes and 14 seconds to play. On the Kentucky free throw line. Here's the toss and the tip. Cox knocks it outside. Adrian Smith picks it up, and it's taken away from him by Brodsky. Fed to Guy Rogers, knocked away, but Rogers picks it up, goes in on Krigler and shoots, no good. Tapped outside, Cox dropped it. Beck fights for it, picked up by Adrian Smith. Guy Rogers fell into the back of him, and then over to Hatton, who's in front court. Over to John Krigler, down the right side to Cox, and a jump shot, it is no good. Over the rim, Krigler slams it back in, and a foul, a whistle, out of bounds, Kentucky. 1 minute, 45 seconds to play. Temple 73, Kentucky 72 in the overtime period. Outside pass to Johnny Cox. Cox to Adrian Smith. Over to Krigler. Back to Smith. To Hatton. To Cox on the left side. Out to Smith. Down the left side to Cox and out to Hatton. Hatton moves to the left on Kennedy. Hooks it out to Krigler. Top of the circle. One-hander. Short again. Hatton up's got the rebound, but a jump is called before he can get it out of there. 1 minute and 18 seconds to play. Now Hatton is jumping against now they move Van Patten out and bring Kennedy in. Gives Hatton 4 inches height advantage. 4 inches. The tap away from Cox. Dropped by Krigler. Picked up by Cox, and Norman fouled him. For Jay Norman, that's his 3rd personal foul. 1 minute, 14 seconds to play. Johnny Cox at the Kentucky free throw line has hit 2 out of 3. Shooting 1 with the bonus rule in effect. Temple 73, Kentucky 72 in our second overtime period. Johnny Cox feet apart, both on the line. Two-hander from between the knees. Short. Beck taps. Good. Ed Beck with his second field goal of the game puts Kentucky on top, 74-73. Guy Rodgers in front court. 1 minute to play. Down the left to Brodsky. Breaks out from 10 feet. The shot in and out. Ed Beck rebounds, and he's fouled by Guy Rodgers. Guy Rodgers came up over his back to try to knock it away, fouling Beck from the rear, and that is all of it for Guy Rodgers. He fouls out of the ball game with 24 points, 11 field goals, and 2 free throws, and a tremendous performance. These fans here are all on their feet, applauding a great performance. As in to replace him is Opie Franklin, who played in the first half and got 1 field goal. Odie Smith races the length of the court to get a word from Adolph Rupp and Harry Lancaster. We have 55 seconds to play as Ed Beck on the free throw line has hit 2 for 3. He's got 1 coming with the bonus rule in effect. Kentucky holds a 1-point edge. Beck sights, and here's his shot. Good. Now a bonus try for Ed Beck, who has only 2 field goals, but that 1 field goal put Kentucky ahead. Now the bonus shot in the air, no good. Tap back, taken up by Brodsky, and a foul against Ed Beck of Kentucky. For Beck, that's his 4th foul. And Kentucky with a 2-point edge now gives the ball back to Temple for a personal chance to get 2 points back. Temple can tie the game up. Joe Brodsky will be trying, and he hasn't missed a free throw. Brodsky has 53 seconds to go, looks in to tie up the score. So now here we go. Brodsky takes a deep breath, and here it is. Good. Bonus shot coming to Brodsky to tie up the 75-74 ball game. This is the second overtime game. Temple trailing by 1 as Brodsky stands in for the bonus. The shot, it's good. And so we're all even 75 apiece, and Kentucky's got the ball with 50 seconds to play. In front court, Vernon Hatton. Pivots, gives over to Adrian Smith. Down the left to Johnny Cox and out to Smith. Will Kentucky want to set on it for that last shot? Now that Temple has lost that great shot, Guy Rodgers. Hatton out deep with it, fakes to Beck in the pivot. Moves to the left on a 1-bounce dribble. Passes over to Krigler. 33 seconds to play. Over to Adrian Smith. Moves in close. Gives it to Hatton. Holding it out of play now. Score tied. Hatton breaks in against Jay Norman. Double team. Pivots. Can't pass. Walks with it. And it's out of bounds to Temple. 20 seconds to go. Temple's going to get the last shot. 15 seconds to go as the pass comes in. Timeout, Temple. That's the 6th timeout for Temple, according to our records. They get 1 timeout in each overtime, so they have another one coming. Well, Kentucky made a costly mistake there, and that could very easily be the ball game. They had the ball with 52 seconds to play. They were going to take 1 shot and walked with it, never got a shot. So now the ball is gone and 14 seconds to play. Well, they did the same thing a moment ago. Guy Rodgers took the last shot and hit it to put Temple ahead 71-69 as the first overtime period came to a close. And with 1 second to go, Vernon Hatton hit a 47-foot set shot and tied the game 71 all to bring it into this second overtime period. But now Kentucky's going to have to watch Temple work it for 14 seconds to try to win it. Apparently, there were very few people in the crowd that thought Kentucky could pull the first overtime out of the fire when Temple with a 2-point lead with only 1 second to go. Well, Kentucky swings from an offensive problem to a defensive problem. Temple with the ball, 14 seconds to play, and the score 75 all. Out of bounds is Joe Brodsky of the Owls to put it in play. Let's see which one of the Temple boys it is that's going to take the last shot. Bill Kennedy has got the ball. Moss back in front court, dries the palm of his hand, so it may be Kennedy shooting against Hatton. He breaks in against Hatton, knocks it up into the air, goes to the right corner. He picks it up and shoots as the game ends. No good. Ball hit the rim, scooted off to the left, and stand by for another overtime period. Hatton batted the ball up into the air on Kennedy as he broke to the right off the head of the circle. Kennedy recovered in the deep right corner, looked at the official to make sure that it was all right to shoot, and he unwound one that hit the far side of the rim to the left and bounced on over. So after 2 overtimes, Kentucky 75, Temple 75. And everything is in an uproar here at the Coliseum, and the fans are seeing one of the greatest games of the season. Here are some late scores that are beginning to come in now. Butler has defeated Ohio State in an overtime period. Kentucky beat Ohio State Wednesday night, and now Butler of Indianapolis has beaten them 4 points in an overtime. Butler 77, Ohio State 73. Michigan defeated Nebraska tonight. Michigan 81, Nebraska 57. And Massachusetts beat Tufts. Massachusetts 71, Tufts 54. Now, overtime number 3. 5 minutes to play. Neither team has come back out to start the third overtime period. The personal fouls are not too critical against Kentucky. However, they are against Temple. Temple has already lost its great quarterback, Guy Rodgers. He fouled out in the overtime period with a little over a minute to go, and he came out with 24 points. Kennedy and Van Patten are also playing with 4 personals, and only Ed Beck of Kentucky is playing with 4 personals. Krigler has 3. That's the next closest man. This is the third overtime that we're getting ready to go into. Coach Adolph Rupp has taken the opportunity down on the Kentucky bench, which is something we have never seen done before by the Baron, and that is let the starters be seated at a timeout period. But they're seated right now, and all the substitutes are standing up. Well, the warning horn sounds, and you can hardly hear it, to start the third overtime period. That time, for the first time, Temple had to come from behind to tie it up. They came from behind on 2 free throws by Mel Brodsky, who also helped them greatly in that first overtime period with some splendid defensive play. This game has been rocking along for an hour and 50 minutes, which is a long stretch for basketball. Beck and Van Patten will jump to start our third overtime period. It means that Temple will have 1-inch height advantage. Here's the toss. The tip slammed on the floor, and Norman's got it for Temple over to Kennedy. And the Owls start the third overtime, 5 minutes with possession. Down the right to Norman. In the pivot to Tink Van Patten, who falls away with a one-hander shot that's no good. Beck slams the rebound into the floor and out of bounds. It goes to Kentucky. No, Temple. Bill Kennedy will put it in play to the left of the Owl basket. Passes in to the left side to Brodsky. He moves up the near left side, brings it out front to set it up with Bill Kennedy. Hatton was going through, and Brodsky beautifully held up on it. Over to Franklin and back to Brodsky. Breaks out to the free throw line. Has it knocked away, but Kennedy picks it up on the bounce, moving out near the midcourt stripe. Down the right to Franklin. Back over to Kennedy from 25 feet. It's no good. Bounces up high on the board. Slapped up by Norman. No good. Taken up by Adrian Smith. Brodsky runs at him. Lets him go. Up in front court to John Krigler. Krigler fakes a shot, pulling Franklin in on him. Passes out to Odie Smith. Off the left to Hatton. Down the side to Cox. Breaks in on Norman to the left corner. Turns. Passes out to Smith. No score in the third overtime period. Here's Hatton breaking in under the basket on Franklin. Hooks it back, no good. Knocked up into the air. Van Patten's got it for Temple. Outside and 2-on-1 against Smith, with Kennedy hooking over to Brodsky, who falls away from 5 feet and misses. On the ground, Krigler's got it, and Franklin fell into him. Opie Franklin of Temple went for the ball, and Krigler got just in front of him, bringing Franklin up on his back, committing his second foul. And it's Krigler on the Kentucky free throw line. Krigler has hit 3 for 4. This is his first appearance on the free throw line since the first half. 3 minutes, 32 seconds to play. Kentucky and Temple 75 all is Krigler. One shot with the bonus rule in effect. Shooting good. That ball held up on the back of the rim and almost dropped to the right. Then went into the nets, and Kentucky leads by 1 point with a bonus shot coming to Krigler. Krigler's 16th point, and the bonus shot is good. Kentucky 75, Temple 75. 77-75. Kentucky leads by 2 points. Bill Kennedy of the Owls in front court now. Cuts to the right side, gets to Franklin. He takes off with a jump shot that's over the rim, no good. Rebounding is Brodsky, and outside to Franklin, top of the circle, shot good. And Jay Norman of Temple with his 5th field goal of the night ties it up 77 all. Vernon Hatton back in front court for the Wildcats. Works left side to Johnny Cox. Back outside to Adrian Smith. Breaks down the left side. Tries to shoot and is fouled on the play. Jay Norman drawing his 4th personal foul for Temple. And now Adrian Smith is on the free throw line for the Wildcats in this clutch situation. Smith has hit 4, missed 3. He's got 2 coming as he was trying to take off on a shot. 3 minutes, 5 seconds now in this third overtime. First shot good. Kentucky leads 78-77. Second shot, good. Kentucky 79, Temple 77. With 3 minutes in this third overtime period. Kennedy back in front court, a sophomore for Temple. On the right side to Franklin. Over to Brodsky. Breaks left off the screen from 20 feet, hits. And with Brodsky sacking up his 9th field goal, Temple again comes from behind to tie it up 79 all. Adrian Smith in front court, passing over to Hatton down the right side to Krigler. Krigler moves out, gives to Smith. Smith moves right side, pulls up, hands to Beck, right back to Smith and out to Cox. Cox passes to Smith over to Hatton, down in the left corner to Krigler. Krigler moves out on the 1-bounce dribble, passes to Hatton. 2.5 minutes now in the third overtime. Adrian Smith fakes from the outside, breaks in on Kennedy at the free throw line from 10 feet. He missed it. Tapped up by Beck, no good. Norman rebounds for Temple, and Beck ties him up. 2 minutes and 22 seconds now in the third overtime period. Beck at 6'7", has 4 inches height advantage on Norman at the Kentucky free throw line. Score 79 all. Here we go. The toss, the tap by Beck to Kennedy, knocked away over the officials, back to Beck. Picked up by Smith to Krigler. Krigler double team, bounce pass out to Smith to Hatton from 20 feet. Good. Vernon Hatton gets his 4th field goal. And for the 3rd time in this third overtime, Kentucky takes a 2-point edge, 81-79 with 2 minutes to go. Here's Kennedy down the left side to Franklin, and back to Kennedy against Hatton. Breaks in, falls away, shot good. A beauty by Kennedy for his 8th field goal of the game. Kentucky and Temple tied up 81 all, as we've already had 12 points go through the net, 6 apiece in this third overtime period. Off the right side to Krigler for Kentucky. Out to Vernon Hatton from 25 feet, good. 5 field goals for Vernon Hatton. And for the 4th time, Kentucky's on top by 2 points here in the third overtime period, 83-81. Kennedy drives in, Hatton hooks it away, and Kennedy, charging, has fouled out of the ball game with 1 minute and 28 seconds to go. Guy Rogers fouled out in the second overtime, and now Bill Kennedy, driving for the basket, has fouled out with 1 minute 28 seconds in the third overtime. He comes out with 19 points. Van Patten and Norman both playing with 4 personals. Beck of Kentucky playing with 4 personals. Kennedy gets a nice hand, a sophomore playing in the heat of this battle, and he's really lived up to all the billing that we've read. The greatest sophomore since Guy Rogers. It looks like we're going to get Jack Peep, P-E-E-P-E, from Pine Grove, Pennsylvania. He's a dental transfer from Lebanon Valley, 22-year-old junior who has not been in the lineup. Peep is 6'2", weighs 202. Kentucky 83, Temple 81, and Vernon Hatton is on the free throw line, where he has hit 5 out of 6. The bonus shot is in effect as Hatton was fouled in backcourt. Now Hatton in at the free throw line, trying to strengthen this 2-point edge. Hatton is a 2-handed free throw shooter. The shot, good. A bonus try for Hatton as Kentucky takes its first 3-point lead of this third overtime period. Hatton's bonus shot. Good. And for the first time in the ball game, Kentucky has a 4-point lead, 85-81. Brodsky of Temple in front court to Norman. Back to Brodsky, breaking for the basket. Adrian Smith blocking. Has just committed his first personal foul of the game. Stops the clock with 1 minute and 20 seconds to play. And Mel Brodsky on the Temple free throw line where he has not missed a shot. Brodsky with one shot coming, and he hasn't missed tonight. So here he is. He shoots, it's good. Temple pulls now within 3 points, and Brodsky's got the bonus shot coming. 85-82 the score. Brodsky looks, here it is, good. 85-83 the score. Kentucky's now got possession as Temple takes time out. They're 7th of the ball game, but they're still entitled to one more as a team is awarded an additional timeout with each overtime played. Just for the record, Kentucky has 5 times out left. 1 minute, 20 seconds in our third overtime period. Temple led 35-34 at halftime. Kentucky tied it up 65 all. It was 71 all after an overtime, 75 all after an overtime. And now, before we finish up our third overtime, let's take 10 seconds for station identification. This is the Standard Oil Sports Network.
WVLK, Lexington, Kentucky. The time is 10 o'clock.
Here's a late score on another game. Richmond has defeated Virginia 13 points. Richmond 64, Virginia 51. Butler beat Ohio State in overtime tonight, 4 points. 1 minute, 20 seconds to go. Kentucky has got the ball in backcourt with an 85-83 lead. Temple has not molested Kentucky in backcourt. Vernon Hatton lobs it into Adrian Smith and takes a return pass. Now the Temple defense coming out to pick him up. Pass goes over to Hatton. Hatton in front court now, moves to the left side. In a low crouch dribble, pivots, passes to Cox on the left side. Back outside to Hatton, playing near the midcourt stripe. He moves to the left. Pulls up on his dribble. Bounce pass to Beck. Breaks in, pulls up quickly, shoots one back to Hatton, over to Adrian Smith. 54 seconds to go now. Smith out deep, double team, gets away from Brodsky, gives off to Krigler. Goes to the left side, gives to Hatton, staying deep near the jump circle. Cuts to the right, comes down the side, juggles the ball, gives to Smith, comes up the side, 40 seconds to go. Comes down the left, down the middle, gives to Cox in the left corner. Cox a one-bounce dribble up the side, high pass outside to Krigler. Krigler moving to the left, gives over to Hatton. Hatton double team. Pulls up, shoots one off the left side to Johnny Cox, 27 seconds to go. Hatton out deep, double teamed and fouled now by Brodsky, committing his third one. The clock is stopped, 24 seconds to play. Kentucky 85, Temple 83, and we're in the third overtime period. Vernon Hatton is on the line, where he has hit 7 for 8. Shooting 1 with the bonus rule in effect. Shot, no good, rolled off, and Van Patten got it for Temple. Pass it over to Brodsky, and the Owls have got a chance with 20 seconds to go. Temple calling timeout, halting the clock at 17 seconds to play. And that's Temple's 8th timeout, all of them that's allowable. We have only 17 seconds to play. Kentucky 85, Temple 83. That free throw by Hatton hit the front of the rim, seemed to almost balance when Van Patten came up for Temple and snared it. So now we got 17 seconds to go. Temple has got the ball at midcourt. As we concluded the first overtime period, Temple led 71-69 with 1 second to go when Kentucky called timeout, and Vernon Hatton got the incoming pass and sank a shot from 47 feet to send it into the second overtime period, where each team scored 4 points. And now Kentucky has scored 10 points in this third overtime period, and at one spot held a 4-point lead, which has been the biggest margin that they have been able to build up in this ball game. Well, we're ready to go to play now as Temple is ready to go into operation with Jack Peet putting it in play to Brodsky. And the indications at the moment are that Harry Litwack, the Temple coach, is going to want Brodsky to take that closing shot. 17 seconds to play. Of course, Temple will be looking for a foul on that shot, too, if I could wrap it up. Here's Brodsky into the right corner. A quick shot's no good. Johnny Cox gets the rebound. Bounce pass out to Hatton. He holds on. Hooks a high pass to Ed Beck, who's in for a gimme crip and missed it. Ed Beck missed the shot, and it's out of bounds. Now the ball game's over. The ball game is over. It is all over. Final score, Kentucky 85, Temple 83, and certainly one of the greatest, most thrilling games ever played in Memorial Coliseum. Out on the floor, they're carrying Ed Beck and Vernon Hatton to the bench. John Krigler greets them. Adolph Rupp is heading down here to talk with Harry Litwack. And if you ever saw two fellows that looked like the building fell in, these two guys are it. We know that Coach Adolph Rupp regards this guy, Litwack from Temple, as one of the fine coaches in the nation. And by golly, they put on a show like you would certainly expect. 85-83 as Kentucky beats Temple in 3 overtime periods. We'll give you the scoring of the ball game in just a moment. Your neighborhood Standard Oil dealer can assure you an extra power bonus, not only in the gasolines he supplies you, but also from your motor oil. When you have him fill your crankcase with either Mobil Oil Special or Uniflow motor oil, you're assured of added octane performance from your gasoline. These two premium motor oils fight off power-robbing deposits as you drive. Keep your engine free of friction for full power development. Discover the full power possible in the gasoline that's in your tank right now. Try a change to either Mobil Oil Special or Uniflow motor oil at your nearby Standard Oil station. Well, Vernon Hatton was certainly one of the big guns of the ball game, if not the man. It was Hatton who brought Kentucky back from the steps of doom. With 1 second to go and 2 points behind, he hit a 47-foot set shot. And then in the third overtime period, where Kentucky won its game by 2 points, Hatton cashed in 2 field goals and 2 free throws to guide Kentucky's 10 points with 6 of them. Krigler started things with a pair of free throws, and Adrian Smith came back with a pair of free throws to give Kentucky a 2-point edge as Norman sandwiched in a field goal between them. And then with Kentucky being tied up by Brodsky with 2:48 to go, Hatton hit a 15-foot jump shot, but Kennedy matched it with 1:46 to play. Then Hatton hit a 25-foot jump shot and fouled by Kennedy, who fouled out at that point. Hatton dropped them both in, and for the first time in the ball game, Kentucky was able to take a 4-point lead. They were down by as much as 8 points in the first half, where Temple outscored them by 1. Then we had Brodsky, fouled by Adrian Smith, cash in both to make it an 85-83 ball game. Hatton finally fouled by Brodsky with only 24 seconds to go. Looked like he could wrap it up if he hit them both, missed them both, and then on a sleeper play in the closing minutes, Beck missed a wide-open crip shot. But little did it matter. The ball game had been wrapped up. So let's check over the individual scoring for you. Johnny Cox broke out in by far his best night with 22 points, 10 better than his best previous night against Duke. He had 10 field goals, 1 of them in overtime, and he hit 2 out of 4 free throws. Ironically, both free throws that Cox missed were in the overtime period. John Krigler finished up with 17 points tonight. He had 6 field goals and 5 out of 6 free throws. And Krigler got 2 free throws in overtime. Ed Beck tonight came up with only 7 points. However, 3 of the 7 were in overtime. He had 2 field goals and 3 for 5 at the free throw line. Earl Atkins contributed 4 points on 2 field goals early in the second half. And Adrian Smith tonight came out with 18 points.